Everyone, hashtag Sports Nation. Paul here from hashtag Sports. And unfortunately, it's a solo show for the evening, but that didn't stop Buffalo from beating the Lions 48-42 in a game that nail biter of an ending. I think a lot of Bills fans were, probably a little bit more complacent with how that game ended than maybe we should have been. Buffalo seemed in control of this game the entire time. In fact, there was only I believe it was one drive. If you excuse the last possession, there's only one drive where they did not score points. You can look at the last, I guess 2 drives where they didn't score points. You have your missed field goal in the second quarter, and then the end of the half where they ran a screenplay just to end the half. Other than that, it was a touchdown fest today in Detroit. And again, I am Paul from hashtag Sports. Welcome to the show. First off, go Bills, and we want to thank our sponsor, Mr. Rogers Homes. You can check out Sean now on his app, which you can find in the description of this video. Don't forget, if you're looking for real estate in Arizona or investment properties, Arizona is an amazing place to relocate. The wings aren't as good. The pizza's not as good either. But Sean, a true and tried Bills fan, celebrating this win with us. So thank you again, Sean, from Mr. Rogers Homes. Go check out his YouTube channel as well for sponsoring the show. All right. Again, the Bills were pretty much in control of this. And here's the deal. If we talked about last week, right, saying if you had any question about Josh Allen being the MVP in the NFL, just watch last week. Cut, copy, paste, right? Like, Josh is just a man on a mission. You'll see it over my shoulder here. It says Josh Allen is the MVP. It's a major award. Sort of a throwback to A Christmas Story. Yeah, there we go. See, there it is. Garn gets it. Oh, I'm getting smoked for my promos. Listen, guys, I'm not a professional wrestler, so I'm not going to cut the greatest promos. But hey, thanks anyway, guys. All right, so let's talk about the game. So Josh Allen is a unicorn. I asked the Dread Pirate Tim Ellington if he had to describe Josh Allen like on a term on his bust in Canton. Let's just fast forward 15 years. Imagine Josh Allen makes the Hall of Fame. What would it say? Like, what would his nickname be? And he said the Buffalo Bull. I was like, oh, that's a pretty stud. That's a pretty stud nickname. So the Dread Pirate Tim Ellington coming up with that one for us. So Josh, 23 for 34 for 362 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He did run for 68 yards. The broadcast said 69. ESPN loads it 11 carries, 68 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He becomes the only player in NFL history to have 35 rushing and passing touchdowns in 4 consecutive seasons. And we'll talk a little bit more about the history of Josh Allen. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Josh Allen and some of the history that even James Cook set today in franchise records in just a little bit. So rolling back, of course, the Bills are now sitting at a paltry 11-3. They are first in the AFC, of course, having clinched the AFC East. They're the Patriots to close up. And the last game of the season is TBD. They just haven't scheduled that game, like exactly what time slot officially yet, but the game means absolutely nothing really unless Kansas City loses the next 2 games. So for the most part, I'm under the impression that game's probably just going to sit at a 1:00 game. But MVP Josh Allen continues his role. Let's give a big Sean McDermott clap up for Ty Johnson. 114 receiving yards today. That's a 22.8 average. He was 5 of 5 with only a long of 33. So when you look at 5 receptions for 114 yards, that's almost a 23-yard average, and he had a long of 33. So they knew exactly how to attack this Detroit defense, and they used Ty Johnson as a absolute weapon. Love the multiple running back looks. I love the no running back looks. You saw Curtis Samuel in the backfield. You saw Khalil Shakir in the backfield today. I love those looks. Great job by Joe Brady today. And I know I saw it in the comments. Where was it? Here it is. Where's the Fire McDermott crowd now? Listen, I certainly am not going to state that, when the Bills go out and drop 48 points, right? And mind you, I think there's only been, if my memory serves me correctly, there's only 3 games the Bills haven't scored at least 30 points in, which is absurd to be this far into the season and have that many. So let's think about that, right? So they lost to the Ravens. They scored 10 in that game. They lost to the Texans. They scored 20. I think that's it. Oh, hold on. The Jets game they won 23-20 in the Jets. Other than that, I think they've scored 30 points, at least 30 points in every single game. Other than that, that's crazy. Now, the opposite side of that is the defense has had some struggles, and they certainly had some struggles today. Lots of injury problems. That is the way that it's going to go. Hey, I killed the blinking lights, lagging things up. Guys, listen, the internet is going to be the internet. Can't promise anything there. So Ty Johnson, again, your Bills leading receiver. Keon Coleman, 1 reception for 64 yards. Dalton Kincaid back on the field, 7 targets today, 4 receptions for 53 yards. And Dawson Knox really with just an awesome catch throughout the course of the game. That's the thing that's so frustrating for Dawson Knox is there's some times when he is just good, right? Like you look at it, you go, man, I get that contract extension. But then you realize he's getting like 1 or 2 targets a game. And like he's always had this ability to come up with these amazing plays every now and again. But Dawson Knox just not a super integral part of this offense. Amari Cooper didn't get a target today. James Cook walks away 1 target for 28 yards. Khalil Shakir, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 39 yards and a touchdown. Mac Hollins on 3 targets, 1 reception for 7 yards, and I guess that's a kick return, right? And then Curtis Samuel, 2 targets for 1 reception and 1 yard. So again, we're kind of back to the everybody eats things, which Amari Cooper, no targets. You scored 48 points. I can't argue with the recipe, right? Joe Brady very much understood how to attack this Lions defense, and boy, did they ever. Jared Goff put up phenomenal numbers, throwing for almost 500 yards today, 494 yards, 59 attempts, 38 completions, 5 touchdown passes. He did take 3 sacks for 21 yards. That is something that the Bills have struggled to do, is actually sack a quarterback. Buffalo walks away with 3 today. Could have had a few more. Jared Goff, ever elusive today. Must have eaten his Wheaties, I assume. Jahmyr Gibbs, almost a non-factor, 8 carries for 31 yards. David Montgomery was out of the game early, 5 carries for 4 yards. But then Amon-Ra St. Brown, 14 receptions on 18 targets, 193 yards. Sam Laporta, 7 receptions for 100 yards. And Jahmyr Gibbs, 5 receptions for 83 yards in the passing game. Other than that, pretty pedestrian performance from everybody else. Lots of targets, lots of receptions, but not a ton of yardage. The fact of the matter is that this Detroit offense gave you everything they could, but it is very obvious that they very much prefer to run the football. When you take a team that runs as much as Detroit does and have 15 total rushing attempts, and 2 of those are Jared Goff, that gets them out of the game early. Buffalo, on the other hand, 34 rushing attempts. And let's talk about some of that late game management. And I guess that's something that I kind of want to talk about early. And let's just get this conversation out of the way. It drove me absolutely bananas to watch, with 4 minutes left, Josh run the football in the red zone. Don't get me wrong. Josh is a weapon, but you're up 2 scores at this point. Like, let's not do anything. Let's not do anything too stupid, right? You're up 10 points. You're probably in pretty good shape here. Your running backs have been very successful on the ground today. All the Josh Allen runs near the end of the game with 4 minutes left. I get it. He's the best player on your team. You're going to put your faith in the best player on your team. I understand. It is still concerning to me because those, to me, are unnecessary carries. You guys let me know in the comments section if you agree. Josh, again, near the end of that game, 4 minutes left, carrying the football an awful lot in the red zone. And those are the types of carries where you look back, you go, man, how necessary how necessary really was that? Ray Davis, 7 carries for 15 yards today, not super effective. Ty Johnson, 2 carries for 9 yards. And James Cook, 14 carries for 105 yards. Let's talk about James Cook real quick. So James Cook, and actually, you know what? Let me share some of the stuff here. Let's get to the Bills PR. So if you guys aren't following Bills PR on Twitter, you really should. Here we go. Yeah, Donnie says agree, but do we know if that's not Josh calling that? Yeah, it's tough to say, right? Like Josh can check to a lot of things at the line. So they've built-in checks, but normally late in the game, they'll give 2 plays in the huddle. I can't imagine that one of them is, hey, Josh, let's just run. A lot of those were very designed runs. Here we go. Bills fan Josh did get x-rays on his shoulder. That is 100% true. Josh had x-rays on his shoulder. They were just precautionary because, again, one of those late game carries came down on his shoulder a little weird and said it just kind of felt funny. Nothing to report as far as we know. So let's get to Bills Twitter. First off, you lost Spencer Brown to a head injury. The Bills have surpassed 40 points in consecutive games for the 3rd time in team history. Josh Allen is now thrown for 2 TDs and rushed for 2 TDs, marking his 6th career such game and extending the NFL record he established last week. You did lose Milano to a groin. You lost Cole Bishop to cramping in the lower leg is what Bills PR released. That looked, of course, terrifying. Thank you to Kareem Jackson, who Sean McDermott praised in his post-game press conference, talking about what a great guy Kareem Jackson is. Here's a guy, oh my God, I almost pulled a Collinsworth. Here's a guy. My apologies, everybody. Believe me, not the depths I want to sink to today. I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper cherry. There's not enough whiskey in the world to make me want to talk like Chris Collinsworth. Anyway, Kareem Jackson has been on the team, hasn't really played any snaps at all, gets forced into duty today. A Pro Bowler, consummate veteran, and Sean McDermott couldn't have said anything nicer about Kareem Jackson as far as what a team player he is, how he prepares, how he doesn't complain, how he goes in there and really does absolutely everything he can to prepare and be ready for when his number is called. So kudos to Kareem Jackson for being the guy that, being the type of player that Brandon Beane loves to add in those veterans, right? Like when they bring in veterans, they want guys that want to be there. And Kareem Jackson is happy in the situation that he's in. I'm sure he'd love to play more. Got an opportunity today. Good for Kareem Jackson to get on the field. Bills PR, again, with 35 points today. The Bills are the 5th team all time to score 30 plus points in 8 consecutive games within a season, and the first since the Broncos in 2013. James Cook finds the end zone for the 2nd time today and his 13th rushing TD this season. I think that gets overshadowed by the season that Josh is having. Cook has 13 touchdowns this season. Cook is now tied for the 3rd most rushing TDs in a single season all time by a Buffalo Bill. Only O.J. Simpson with 16 and Josh Allen from last year at 15 have run 4 more. And you still have 3 games to go. Very possible that James Cook gets that. This team takes those types of accolades very seriously. Patriots, Jets, Patriots, you could see James Cook break the Bills single season touchdown record in franchise history. Again, playing more games now, right? So there's an extra game to get that in. By comparison to O.J. Simpson. Ty Johnson surpasses 100 receiving yards, becoming the first Bill since Fred Jackson in 2010. Curtis Samuel was questionable. He did come back. Dorian Williams was questionable. He did come back. Ty Johnson has 3 catches for 20-plus yards today, the most by a Bill RB since Thurman Thomas in Week 2 against the 49ers. All right. So that is Bills PR. If you guys aren't following Bills PR, they are super fun giving that stuff in game. That Bills PR department really does a great job of doing and communicating as much as possible. James Cook over 1,000 total yards and 14 total TDs. This was a really beat up Lions team. So let's talk about that. Not to give any excuse, right? Both the Bills and the Lions both left this game pretty banged up. Buffalo entered having to start Cole Bishop. That's a thing. You saw a lot of Cam Lewis today. That was a thing. You saw Kareem Jackson. That was a thing. You saw a lot of Balen Spector because Milano went out with the groin. Dorian Williams got snaps back. And actually Dorian Williams looked looked good playing in those snaps without Milano. And then you look at Johnson, and what a game he had. I know it's hard when you look at Detroit had two receivers. One almost went for 200 yards, and they're tied. And Laporta went for 100, right? 100 and I think 11 is what I said. And it's hard to praise the secondary when you give up 42 points. But this is a team that can lay it on you. And even as banged up as they are, the fact of the matter is Detroit's secondary just wasn't going to be able to compete with Buffalo. They were going to have to get them with pass rush. Josh, again, no sacks, no turnovers. He is on absolute fire. And this is what this team looks like when you're not turning the ball over. And that's been a perennial issue for this team for multiple seasons with Josh at quarterback. Josh fumbles an awful lot, at least in previous seasons. He'd give up the ball and take risks. And, you'd lose possessions. You're not losing possessions anymore. Like, you can't score 30 points in 8 consecutive games is what Bill's PR said. And the fact of the matter is you've scored 30 plus points in the vast majority of your games. You don't do that by losing the turnover battle. And it's not that Buffalo is generating a ton of turnovers, but they're forcing teams to make decisions in situations that they don't want to make decisions in. Dan Campbell going for an onside kick at the time of the game that they did. They knew they weren't going to be able to stop Buffalo, so you have to steal possessions. You do that, and Mac Hollins almost runs it back. That's what good teams do, is they make other good teams get out of their comfort zone. And today, Detroit did not want to have to throw the ball and have Jared Goff go out there and try and siphon everything he could from his football career to throw for almost 500 yards. That's not how you draw that up. That is where we are doing the best we can. They had a big man touchdown earlier in the game. Do you think they wanted to break that play out against Buffalo? No, but they were trying to stay in the game. Big man touchdowns are game breakers. It energizes the bench. It totally changes the pace of the game. Big men touchdowns are gold in this league. They're gold for your team. They're gold for the fan base. The media loves it. There's nothing wrong about a big man touchdown. Everybody loves them. But you don't want to break that up to get back into a game in the first quarter or early second quarter. That's not what you're trying to do. That's a play that you roll out there for, you're up against the wall in a wild card game. You're up against the wall, in a divisional series. Like those are the plays that you do to either separate yourself and take a bigger lead in a critical game, or to get back in a game you can't lose. And Dan Campbell, man, he loves to roll the dice, and it is fun to watch. But I will say, for a head coach, a defensive head coach, there's been some times where it's been scary. And I think that's where a lot of people on the fire McDermott train ultimately always end up going is, hey, he doesn't do a great job managing the clock. We saw Dan Campbell do something very similar to what McDermott did last week. And that was Campbell with 3 timeouts, let the ball basically go down to 2 minutes. Let the game basically go down to 2 minutes with almost 3 minutes on the clock. I don't know what metric tells you that that's how you want to use your timeouts. There must be something telling them somewhere that the analytics say keep the physical timeout, forget the fact that the 2-minute warning is technically a timeout, because you don't get to use it when you want, you just get it when it happens. So I think there must be analytics telling them just let the 40 seconds go off the clock before the 2-minute warning. Just let it go. But it's strange to me that we saw 2 very different style coaches do the exact same thing in the exact same situation. You got 3 timeouts. You're trying to save clock. You're trying to get the ball back so you can get back in this game. And it was fascinating to me to watch Dan Campbell do the exact same thing that Sean McDermott did the week prior. So that tells me that there's metrics that tell you should be doing that stuff. I get it, right? Again, something says that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know what. It doesn't feel right, but listen, we saw these 2 teams put 90 points up on the board today. Good grief. What a game. And I get that both teams were banged up, right? Yeah, of course they were. But put a pin in it. This is a Josh Allen MVP game. Ty Johnson is making himself money with games like this. Buffalo was able to hold on to Ty Johnson again because he was going to be in a running back committee. They just drafted Ray Davis. They already have James Cook. Not a great room for Ty Johnson to walk into. And he's keeping Ray Davis at bay from that third down back job. And Josh Allen said that he thinks that Ty Johnson might be one of the better third down backs in the league in his post-game press conference, talking about the performance that Ty Johnson had. Ty Johnson could not be stopped today, but game plan specific, they knew exactly how to attack that Detroit defense. Of course, without Aiden Hutchinson, that's a big one. You saw Buffalo again kind of struggle to. I really thought they were going to eat Goff alive. I'm just going to be honest with you. I anticipated that if Buffalo could get out early, Detroit would have trouble keeping up with them. That is what happened there. Detroit is not a great second half team as far as that's concerned. Their scoring pace is really down in the second half compared to what they do in the first half. And the truth is, if Buffalo could stay with them or take an early lead, Detroit was going to struggle to keep up with them. Praise be to Detroit, man. That is a good football team. They're pretty banged up, though. And they got to get healthy real quick because the season's coming to a close super fast. Yep. Bills fan, 21. Great point. 2 straight weeks, we score over 40. We score and allow over 40 points. And again, from a defensive head coach, it's just not exactly what you're looking for there, right? You're hoping that it gets better. You really are. You're just hoping that it gets better. We only ran 15 times. We want to run play action and rush the ball 30 times or more. Your defense did amazing shutting. So Andy's a Detroit fan. Let's just preface that, right? So we only ran the ball, referring to Detroit. We only ran the ball 15 times. We want to run play action and rush the ball 30 times or more. Your defense did amazing shutting that down and taking that option away from us. The score did that more than anything else, Andy, right? Buffalo was up 14-0. At some point, you just got to play catch-up football. And Buffalo didn't ever take their foot off the gas, which that was just the tail of the tape today. Safeties are an issue. This is why you brought back Micah Hyde, right? Micah Hyde is on your practice squad for a reason. You should not have expected to see him in this game, regardless of what was happening. DeMar was inactive. Taylor Rapp was inactive. So you're rolling out Cam Lewis and Cole Bishop. And there's, a player that you drafted in the second round that you're hoping for big things from. And then, a second round, third round, one of your early picks this last draft. And then Cam Lewis, who's been on the team in a variety of roles for multiple seasons. So from a trust standpoint, this is where you're sitting. And of course you're uncomfortable with that. So you bring Hyde back. You already have Kareem Jackson, but you're not hoping to put Kareem Jackson. You're not looking for an opportunity to put, 15-year veteran Kareem Jackson on the field. God, he's got to be 36 at this point, right? You're not looking for an opportunity to put him on the field. You do that when you absolutely have to. And when you lost Bishop, that was your, we absolutely have to do this right now. Good on them for having Kareem Jackson dressed for the game, but yeah, thank you. Cole Bishop was a second round pick. After the trade down, Garn, that's what got me, because I immediately just, the trade down got me on that. Thank you. Chet the B asks, where is Amari Cooper? No targets or catches. Didn't even see him on the field. Didn't need him. But that's the thing, right? It's so easy to say, well, you didn't need him. So much of the NFL is about zigging when the team thinks you're going to zag, right? So much about that is preparation. So with the Lions secondaries banged up as it was already coming into the game, and then, of course, they lost 2 cornerbacks during the game, you kind of assume that Buffalo is going to be able to attack you in the secondary, right? So they probably spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out how to take Cooper away. And by making those compromises, right, what did that do? It opened up Ty Johnson underneath. It allowed you to get Kincaid some targets. Even Shakir had for Khalil Shakir, relatively pedestrian game. Mac Hollins had a relatively pedestrian game. You go and you have Dawson Knox make some contributions. The fact of the matter is you scored 48 points with your best wide receiver, your 2 best wide receivers combining for 1 target for 64 yards. And that was Keon Coleman. 1 reception for 64 yards. It was Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper. The one reception between the 2 of them. That was it. You're not going to be able to get away with that every time, right? So the fact that Cooper walks away with no receptions and no targets, that's a non-factor to me, because I know that Amari Cooper is totally okay with that. If this were Diggs, he'd be burning the city to the ground behind the scenes. You don't have to deal with that. Amari Cooper, you scored almost 50 points, and I just had to run some routes, and I did some run blocking. Cool with me. That's it. Cool with me. Amari Cooper is an underrated run blocker, so let's not forget that. I'm sure Amari Cooper's agent was not happy with the performance today. Like Cooper's looking at free agency next year. I'm sure his agent is like, yeah, thanks, Buffalo. I'm sure he appreciates the win. Thanks a lot for the stats sheet, But Amari Cooper's going to do just fine in free agency if he doesn't re-sign with Buffalo. The Dread Pirate Tim Ellington. I just saw Cooper throw a great block for Cook at one point. I hope he stays on the roster next year. We'll see what that looks like. The reality is you have an aging Von Miller that you still have to deal with. You have Greg Rousseau on a $13 million option, and SpotTrack says that his projected per year salary is going to be about $25 million after he's off that fifth year option. So go ahead and just think about that for a minute. I guess sort of the unsung hero today for the defense was Ed Oliver. Ed was on fire today. I've always loved Ed playing next to Jordan Phillips, right? I really feel that he plays his best football next to those just chaotic guys. And listen, I don't get me wrong, right? I was a big Daquan Jones fan after I got over the fact that I wasn't supposed to like him. Like he was that body eater, and you just, the ghost of Starla Tulele was over my head, and I was just like, man, here we go again. We're getting another guy that's just, he's going to command two bodies, like the ghost of Starla Tulele got me on Daquan Jones. But after I got over that, Daquan Jones was a very good player, and I thought Ed played well next to him. But Ed, to me, plays far better next to chaotic. When there's guys like Jordan Phillips that are just erratic at the defensive tackle position, I think that's when Ed really plays his best. Yeah. I mean, at least today, that Ed Oliver extension looks good, right? After a game like today, that at least it looks good today. I mean, there's been many games over the last 2 years where you look at Ed Oliver and he was just a ghost, right? Jared Goff played out of his mind today. The Jameson Williams would be touchdown. It got called back for a hold anyway, right? But this team can beat this secondary even healthy. I guess that's something that, you can't bag on Buffalo too much. You're without Rasul Douglas. You played a ton of man coverage today because you're starting Kaiir Elam, and Kaiir Elam can't play zone. I think he's proven that. I think the coaching staff has even said it as such. Like Kaiir Elam has to play man, and even in man coverage, gave up a lot, right? You did what you had to do to get by. You survived the game, but I don't think anybody's looking forward to Kaiir Elam going out there and playing. Like there were a couple of times I saw Kaiir Elam still running down the field and the receiver had already cut, so definitely some problems there. But you did what you had to do to survive. Benford is again, at times looks great, but you played a lot of man coverage today. This is a team that's dangerous for you, right? And maybe the sack numbers came because of that, because when you play man coverage, you get the opportunity to kind of bring a little bit more pressure than you typically do. So yeah, you put pressure on Goff, but there were times where Goff absolutely torched you, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is just, he's just an animal. Like, and it's so impressive to me because he's not flashy, right? Like you remember what Puka did last week, right? And that was impressive. But maybe it's impressive because people forget that Puka Nacua is like 6'2", 6'3". Like people forget that he's that big. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is just a target vacuum. He's out there sucking up targets and really doing the dirty work. With that being said, getting Detroit out of the game early, huge kudos to Buffalo for that. Huge kudos for that. Yep. Davis, Ed has had a rough year until now. Yeah, I think you could go back and look at almost every game and kind of wish a lot more from Ed Oliver. But Jordan Phillips is back on the team, man. I am telling you, if you go back and watch this game, snaps that Jordan Phillips took might have been the best snaps Ed played all day. I don't know what it is. That's what it felt like. I haven't had a chance to obviously go back and watch the game again. That's just kind of That's just kind of what it felt like. That's just what it felt like. Let's go and take a look at the stats for today. Incredibly, the Detroit Lions had 27 passing first downs to Buffalo's 15. That's crazy. Buffalo had 11 by rush. Detroit had 3. Buffalo had 2 first down by penalties. The 11 accepted flags today. Really weird to see personal foul penalties on turnovers. I forgot about that. Buffalo, Buffalo had a fumble recovery, and there was a personal foul penalty on Detroit that it was assessed on post fumble. You just don't see personal foul penalties on turnovers all the time. I forgot that gets assessed right on there because I saw the penalty. I go, well, it doesn't matter. It's wiped on a turnover. And I don't know why I thought that. Just knee-jerk reaction. I just completely forgot the total structure of personal foul penalties in the NFL. I was like, yeah. Then they explained they're going to tack it on to the end of the play. I was like, that is how that happens. I had a brain fart. It was why. I mean, you don't see it that often, but a complete brain fart. I don't know why I thought that for some reason. Buffalo, 197 yards on the ground, 34 rushing attempts, 5.8 yards per rush. Buffalo averaged 10.6 yards per pass. Crazy. That's crazy. I want to give credit where credit is due. When you have teams go out there and they combine for like, let's see here. Let's do the math real quick. 0, 3, 8, 1,080 yards today in today's game. The Detroit Lions ran 77 plays. 77. The Bills ran 68. Guys, you don't get play totals like that ever. You never get play totals like that. Like, there's been times where Buffalo's won games having run like 50 plays. 77 is a huge number. So kudos to Buffalo, kudos to Detroit for putting on a great 425 game today. Everybody got what they paid for. Good grief. Playoffs, here we come. So Buffalo walks in to the we're at home against the Patriots. If memory serves me correct, we are home against the Patriots next week. That is a 1:00 game for those of you tailgating. It's been a while since Buffalo has had a home 1:00 game. It feels the schedule just kind of has been a weird year. The Patriots are 3-11, 2-6 on the road. So I mean, they got absolutely stomped by the Cardinals today. They lost 30-17. And there's not a lot to write home about with this Patriots team. They're playing for the love of football right now, and that's about it. What to expect? I don't know. I mean, Buffalo's just been absurd. They've been absurd. They're undefeated at home this season. You can't imagine a scenario where the Patriots are ever in this game after the coin flip. There's nothing to me that is like even excited about this game, which sucks to say, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it sucks to say that, but the Patriots are just that bad a football team. And you start looking at these games, and until Kansas City starts dropping, I mean, you're looking at Baltimore might be the wild card team, right? Like, Baltimore is 2 games behind Pittsburgh at this point. Like, you got problems there. Like, Baltimore is going to be a wild card team. Miami's basically at this point out of the playoffs. We should probably look at playoff structure real quick. Let me pull that up. Let me pull up and let's start talking playoff structure here. AFC playoff picture. Pulling this off of NFL.com, so I am confident that today's games are not included here. Right as of right now, the Bills are the number 2 seed, the Steelers are the 3, and the Texans are the 4. Texans did beat Miami today. I'd have to look to see if the Steelers beat Philly. I think Philly did Philly beat them today? I think Philly beat them today. The rest of the playoff picture. is in the hunt. That's the Ravens. Again, it's going to be whoever wins that division. The other team is going to make the playoffs at this point between Pittsburgh and the Ravens. The Broncos were sitting at the 6th seed. They were playing the Colts. I do believe they won that game as well. I think the Broncos won that game. And the Chargers were sitting at the 7th seed against Tampa, which was going off the same time as the Bills game. So a playoff picture is pretty dicey here. But I mean, the Ravens are basically a lock at this point to have at least made the wild card. And then your seeding, I mean, it's possible you go against the Broncos the first round of the playoffs, right? Like that's possible. There's some matchup problems here. Like I think you've seen the Texans. I'm not scared of the Texans. The Steelers, they're going to drag you into deep water and they're going to pray that you only score 20 points. Russell Wilson is playing like he actually cares about football now. It's weird, right? It's a weird scenario with the playoff picture looking forward because you just keep waiting with Kansas City for the other shoe to drop, and they just keep winning football games. And like they played a Browns team who has beat the Steelers and the Ravens both this year. I think it's the only games that they won all year. And like they've beat two very good teams, and they weren't even close to Kansas City today. It's a weird scenario. It's super weird. Danny, thanks for the compliment. Mario he had some family things tonight, so he was unavailable. Ryan is traveling for work, so he's unavailable. Joe just spent the last 4.5 hours calling the show, or calling the game. So hashtag I was unavailable tomorrow. Victory. Let's go. Tim Ellington says, I want the Ravens to play Kansas City before us. They seem like they would take out KC. The problem is that KC is going to get the lowest remaining seed post bye week because it does look like Kansas City is going to take that 1 seed. I mean, they'd have to absolutely fall on their face the rest of the way. Yep. And Garn. Yep. The Ravens 5, Broncos 6, Chargers 7 as of now for our wild card spots. Yeah, that's kind of how that looks like it's shaping up. So the reality is you're probably avoiding the Ravens if you're Buffalo at the 2 seed, right? If you can retain the 2 seed, you're avoiding the Ravens. No problems there. No problems there at all. But you're either looking at, you get Peyton or you get a Harbaugh. So the Chargers don't scare me. The Broncos don't scare me either. Pittsburgh, that's a tough matchup for Buffalo. You've already seen the Texans. I'm not worried about the Texans. And you're just hoping that KC gets the Ravens, but you need a little help there. You need a little help there. I don't know if you're necessarily going to get it. Yep. And Mahomes did leave. I think it was an ankle from what I saw. Mahomes did leave the game, did not come back in. I mean, they were fully in control of the game, so there's probably no reason for Mahomes to come back in, but he's like Allen in that respect where it's hard to keep him off the field. So I have to imagine he was probably pretty banged up. We won't really know until Tuesday. Let's just be honest about that, right? We're not going to know about Mahomes' injury. And that's the one thing that, oh my God, looking forward, right? That's the one thing that kind of worries me. Allen goes out. Let's just say everything goes Buffalo's way, right? You get the matchup you want in the playoffs. The Ravens take out, let's say magic happens. You're playing the Ravens in the AFC Championship game, right? Because the Ravens took out the Chiefs through whatever bracket magic and sprinkle that magical bracket dust on it. And that KC gets bumped out, right? So really any team besides Kansas City. Kansas City gets bumped out before they get to Buffalo. The argument will be Buffalo still will never beat Kansas City in the playoffs. And I just want to let's just slay the dragon, right? Just slay the dragon. I do not want people to have that excuse. And it's hard for me to want to ask for that again. Like I've seen what Kansas City playoff football looks like, and I do not want to be a part of it in Arrowhead, right? I don't want to be there. But I understand that for argument's sake, at some point you have to slay the dragon. And that is the dragon. And that's the one that you got to get. So it's really frustrating to me to think about playoff scenarios and think, well, I really hope Kansas City gets bumped out before we have to go to Arrowhead because I want the game in Buffalo, right? I want another AFC championship game. I want it in Buffalo. I want that for this city. That's what I want. I want it. Got to have it. What do we have to do to make that happen? Well, that means Kansas City's likely getting bumped out of the playoffs. And the soul of me I can feel it getting sucked right out of my body because I want for the city of Buffalo an AFC championship game where you win and you're going to the Super Bowl. That would mean so much to this city, especially with the way this team has performed the last 5 seasons. You're talking about multiple division championships. I want it for this city. But good God, man, like the thought that people could still have the argument of, well, Buffalo's never beat Kansas City in the playoffs. Of course, that would be the year the Bills make the Super Bowl, right? Of course, that would be the year. And like, don't get me wrong, every team gets fortunate throughout the course of the season. So maybe I'm just making an argument that is pretty consistent. Like this happens in every NFL season. There's always the team that another team benefits by not winning, right? Like a team that gets bumped out. I get it, right? With that being said, like it just to the core of me, I just don't want to give people that argument. Allen's having an MVP season. I hope he's the MVP. If he's the MVP, you can't lose to Kansas City. That is, you can't lose to Kansas City. And it would be an Arrowhead at this point. And you can't lose there either. So, like, I just don't want to continue to anoint Kansas City as, it's just a competitor in me, I guess. I think a lot of you probably feel the same, right? I just don't want to continue to anoint Kansas City as the greatest thing in the NFL because their season this year has been a collection of fortune that has just gone their way. They've won 2 games in the final seconds by doinking a field goal or extra point. I don't remember what either circumstance was. I think they were both field goals. One was against the Broncos, and the other one was just a couple weeks ago. They've won 2 games in final seconds by doinking it off the goalpost. Like, how frustrating is that? To look at your record if you're a Bills fan, and look at Kansas City record and go, these things aren't equal. They're not on paper. This isn't a game. These things aren't equal. Yet here we are. It's kind of garbage luck that would only apply to a team like Buffalo. So a Super Bowl looking more possible. Davis, I would rather play KC than Baltimore. Honestly, the Ravens are better. I mean, I'm in for any, right? Just give me any. All of the above, right? Like your team's scoring at a record NFL pace. Like you've scored 30 plus points in 8 consecutive games. The downside is you're giving up an awful lot of points. You're giving up an awful lot of points in most of these games. That's it. Daniel Gary's. To be the man, you got to beat the man. That is right. That is right. Gary's, I don't think you emailed us. Email us at hashtagsports@gmail.com to swap out this Ed Oliver autographed mini helmet for the one that you had. I think you got Levi Wallace, if I'm remembering correctly. Just email us. We'll throw a t-shirt in. We've got hashtag t-shirts. Email us at hashtagsports@gmail.com. Just so that we can get your most updated address and stuff. I'm sure we have it in the archives somewhere, but please don't make me go through Gmail to find that. I very much appreciate not having to do that. And for those of you that are unaware, this is what was this? This one is Lorenzo Alexander mini football, the Ed Oliver mini signed helmet, a Bill Selby bobblehead doll, of course, Bob Ross. And again, to call it out, Josh Allen's the MVP. It's a major award. Again, when it comes to playoff seedings, just give me whatever, right? Just give me whatever. The Bills are going to give up 78 points, and all they got to do is score 79. Like, okay, sure, right? Okay, go ahead. That's going to be what happens, right? It's going to be what happens. So Buffalo goes ahead, takes down Detroit. It is a Bills victory. So as you all know, when the Bills win, we roast. This is 3 minutes now. Why we extended it to 3 minutes, I have no idea. It was 2 minutes in previous seasons. I'm all by myself today. So congratulations to me, because there's no Mario to be my meat shield of the roast session. How far things have come from a dark room. Yeah, this is the same room that I was in before, guys. I just in the corner now. Like nobody puts baby in the corner, but this corner's fine for me, right? I know I got, Paul broadcasting from his shower. I got that. Got that a few times. That's right. It is hard to roast without Mario around. Great meat shield, man. Great meat shield. That's why do you think I hang out with the 6'5" guy? Like, I'm not a little guy. I'm 6 foot tall. Like, I'm not a little guy. Well, I'm slender. Like I should say I'm slender. Dainty. I've been called dainty in the past. Don't appreciate it. Oh, words were said. All right. Sean Rogers, our sponsor for the show. Every game, every post game, Sean is the man. You can check out Mr. Rogers Homes on his YouTube channel and also the app if you're looking for real estate in Arizona. Income property. If you're looking for investment opportunities, Sean is your wealth management real estate investor in Arizona. Go talk to Sean. And let's see. My Lord, the Bills can put up points. The defense, well, as long as they score one more point. That's it. That's what I was just saying. That's what I was just saying, Sean. The Bills will give up 78. Just score 79. That's it. Mario's forehead is shining bright somewhere. Yeah, that's what the drones were flying for, right? That's why there were so many of them. They couldn't tell whether it was a landing strip or not. Like, what's this going on in upper Western New York? What is this bright thing off in the distance? You can blame Mario for the drones. They were looking for the landing strip, and it was Mario's forehead on the street lights in his neighborhood. In a D&D party, Paul would be the DPS and Mario would be the tank. Do I look like a D&D? I do give off D&D vibes, don't I? Dungeons and Dragons. I give off Dungeons and Dragons vibes. I'm not gonna lie, I was a big Magic the Gathering player back in the early 90s. Mid 90s. I missed Alpha and Beta. I came in at the next edition. So I was a big Magic the Gathering player. Game is far too complicated for me now. Far too complicated. I build computers now as a hobby. Like I'm now that nerd, right? Donnie, Mr. Rogers always trying to welcome you to the neighborhood. The lights in the background, or Mario's hair is so big because it's full of secrets. Lights in your background look like they're like you're being invaded by New Jersey drones. Yeah, Mario helped me actually decorate the background, so everything you see here, except for this, is Mario's fault. If you think again, I look like I remodeled my bathroom and just put a chair and camera in there, then there you go. Oh my God, it'll blow the dust off my Magic cards. Magic the Gathering is just pay to win. It's a fun game. It's a nerdy game, but it's a fun game. All right. That is oh wait, Sean. Yeah, I am wiry. That's it. I am wiry. Thank you, Sean. I thank you for white knighting for me in the comment section. I appreciate that. So Buffalo wins. Sean Rogers is our sponsor. This has been Hashtag Sports. I am Paul. Buffalo playing at 1 o'clock on Sunday against the Patriots, and that'll be a flogging. That'll be, I don't know. I think we should have a bet on how many minutes of that game Josh actually plays. I feel like at some point you just look at it and say, what are we doing here? Right? Like, what are we doing? Can you fit anything else on those shelves? I think not. No, I cannot. They are at maximum capacity. Maximum capacity, Davis. No, yeah, absolutely. Maximum capacity. Paul may be slender, but he is wiry. I am many things. Slender and wiry are certainly one of them. All right, guys. Thanks again. Hashtag Sports. Have a good one. Go Bills!
Hello, fellow Bills fans. Sean Rogers, realtor and lead of the Mr. Rogers Homes team. Did you know that real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth, and right now is one of the best times to own an investment property in Arizona? Please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions so we can take the next step to your financial freedom here in the Valley of the Sun, utilizing real estate. As always, God bless America and go Buffalo!